Hello, and welcome to the first of my series of guests that Libby will be welcoming over the first week of her launch. Libby the Libivia Joanna, a picture book I co-wrote with Kevin, who is right here right now, just got launched yesterday, October 1st, 7 p.m. And now for the next few days, I will be interviewing a different guest and just chatting about the book in various different aspects of it. So Kevin, you're my husband and you're also the co-author. Thank you for doing this with me. Maybe tell folks about yourself just a little bit.
Sure. As you know, we've co-written a number of projects. That was actually years ago for me. I haven't been writing so much lately at all. It's funny, I came out of a background in school in theater, and I suppose like most people who come out of a background in theater, you wind up trying a whole lot of things because you try and make a living. These days, I changed direction a couple times. I went into English teaching for a very short while. And then after that, I went back to school and became a librarian. So I work as a media librarian. And these days I work on the semantics end of things as a media librarian at the CBC.
Yes, which I'm well familiar with because you are working from home at the moment anyway, because of the whole COVID-19 thing, and you'll be here for a while yet. And I guess a little intro about myself as the other author. I'm a writer. That's what I've been doing for a long while. I'm also a canine and feline massage therapist. That's the other entrepreneurial job that I do. And I also used to, and am sort of stepping back into the whole film, video, production, direction, and writing thing again. And hopefully I'll get back to producing, directing, writing theater again too. Actually, I never stopped writing theater, so there's still plays going on in my head. But yeah, that's me. And so I think you touched on this really briefly there, Kev. This is your first picture book, though, yes, or even children's book.
Yeah, that's right. Back when I was writing a little bit more, I tended to. I was interested in short stories. I was interested in, I think I dabbled with one or two novels that never really got out there, which is fine. Nobody can ever see my mistakes. And I was particularly interested with things like, I suppose, I guess you'd call it urban fantasy, a mix of fantasy and reality. I was, as a reader, I enjoyed things like urban fantasy as well. I enjoyed kids' books. And I suppose for me, what tied the two things together is there's a certain amount of imagination and a reimagining of reality. So it's not that you're getting away from reality exactly. It's that it's sort of like a dream. You start with reality as a base, but you don't have any limits as to what directions it can go. It can just grow in any way, shape, or form. The challenge with kids' books is that you have to write them completely differently. And this was my first one. It was a first challenge, and I don't even really think we sat down to write a kids' book together. I know we've talked about this a number of times, and we were at dinner, and I think you asked me to make a joke about what would be the most ridiculous kids' book idea, and I think I said something like a cactus with self-esteem issues.
Yeah, something like
ridiculous.
That. Yeah.
And then you came up with a story about a cactus with self-esteem issues. And I guess it's kind of like a challenge. Can we complete it? And we went ahead with it.
Yes. Yeah. As you've said before, I pitched something back to you, and then we basically moved back and forth. And I guess now we're talking about the co-writing process that we went through. We have co-written before. It's been many years, and also when we co-wrote this book originally, Libby, that was many years ago too. It's been a long time coming, this book, but that's kind of another story. But we have co-written before, but it's mostly been scripts. I remember Space Zombies, the feature film that we also produced and you starred in, and you were awesome in, and I was in as well. And so that one actually got produced and is out and available. But we also did a screenplay that is still just a screenplay right now called They Suck. Definitely not for children. We're not going to go into that one right now. But we also worked together on some sketches and things like that. So it was mostly very film and a little bit of television maybe and stuff like that. So did you find personally that the process was similar for like even something like Space Zombies and then writing Libby together?
I suppose I'm trying to remember. I mean, it really was a long time ago now. But I think by the time we did Libby, we did have a kind of established way of working, and it was, I would say, a very independent, collaborative approach. And by that I mean usually you would come up with something, and then I would take it away and sort of close myself in a room,
Mhm.
and I'd look at it and I think, okay, and then I'd start to work through it in whatever way my brain needed to work through it, and then I'd say, okay, this, I love this section, I'd like to make this tweak, I'd like to make these tweaks, but in this particular section, wouldn't it be cool if we did something like this? And then so I would pitch something back, and then it would just go back and forth, a little like a tennis match. We just sort of keep pitching drafts back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until we wound up with a final or something close to the final, because these things never quite end when you think they end. They always need a little rewrite or a little tweak or something like that.
And we had beta readers and things like that who we came across sometimes on purpose. I went through a particular editing service, I remember, that was online, Words R Us or something like that. So obviously we were looking for another outlook there, and then some we got from different publishers, and that was not accidental. It had been a submission, and they made suggestions about it. So we actually got feedback, and we got to work on it further. And one publisher in particular, Dr. Ruth, not the Dr. Ruth you're thinking of, but from Hibiscus Publishing, helped us a whole bunch. She wasn't able to publish it in the end, but going back and forth with her, that was a big help and a big chunk of time and effort that she spent for us on Libby, and it is greatly appreciated. It actually was a huge, big help. But I seem to remember for They Suck, when we were co-writing, sometimes we actually were chatting or spitballing like right in the same room with each other, whereas Libby definitely was different. It was back and forth, yeah, and working on it one at a time and honing it, basically, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, yeah. I vaguely remember those spitballing sessions as well, but I definitely remember for Libby, it was kind of a real back and forth, I think, and it might have had something to do with the fact that it was a children's book as well, because I seem to remember, sitting down and working through whenever I wanted to work through a section. I seem to remember saying, "Okay, wouldn't it be great if I tried this change?" But when you're writing, I guess sometimes when you're writing for older audiences, you can allow yourself a little bit more space. And, I'd realize I wrote something about 2 or 3 times longer than I really meant to. And then I thought, well, this is no good because it sounds bad. And then I'd start to pare it down, and I realized this doesn't sound quite right either. And it really was for me a process of like, you start with I don't know, like say, just like a mound of just like a tree trunk, for example.
Okay.
Like a tree trunk, you're going to carve into something. And you know the design is in there somewhere. And
Yeah.
part of it is the effort of removing all the extra stuff
Mm-hmm.
to reveal whatever you're trying to find. Um, but sometimes, of course, if the chisel just goes the wrong way, you wind up revealing something that you really don't want to reveal, or that's just aesthetically not very pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this weird balance of sort of carving down and then realizing no, that's not the right shape, and then sometimes starting again and then carving down again. So I think maybe that was the reason why it wound up being, I'll work on it, pass it off to you, you'll work on it, pass it back to me, I'll work on it.
And that's the thing also about children's books. They force you, especially picture books, where you have a word count that is under 1,000 for sure, and you're aiming maybe if you can get close-ish to 500 or so. That's a real sweet spot. So it forces you to be very concise and to whittle away at the trunk, like you're saying, and like it you just really have to. It forces you, and I feel like children's book writing really helps other writing too. You learn that discipline, and you're all set for some really nice, clean writing for adults as well. I mean, you don't have to keep the word count down so much, but if you get into a habit of writing like that, then I think it's an advantage for other writing as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's I said, this the form really encourages you to be concise.
Mhm.
I suppose all writing really should encourage you to be concise,
Exactly.
but I don't want to say that children's books are especially unforgiving, because I don't want to make it sound like it's an arduous process. But it really does make you choose things carefully, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to the themes of the book,
Mm.
because I just wanted to get your thoughts kind of and perhaps discuss mine on the whole beauty and self-esteem thing that the book is about, and how important that was for you, and when did it start to really surface? I mean, it was always there. We were talking about a cactus with self-esteem issues, right? And we decided she was going to be a girl. But when did it really start to become a forefront, an important thing for you?
Oh, that's a good question, because I seem to remember that was part of the book. That was part of the story from the earliest inception. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe not the first joke about it's about a cactus with self-esteem issues, but when you actually pitched the story back to me, it definitely had that element quite strongly in it, I think. And so it was always there. And for me, it's interesting. For me, I when did it become part of the forefront? I think it always was
Yeah.
for me. And it's, again, the fact that the character was a female. In my mind, actually, from the earliest moment, it wasn't an intentional choice to make this about, for example, women and beauty.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, the character happened to be female, and
Mhm.
we were talking about self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I would never pretend to be an expert in women and self-esteem or women and beauty, but I can certainly comment on self-esteem issues. I think
Yeah.
everyone can. Everyone has those moments, and
Mhm.
so that's, for me, when I was working on it. That's what it was. It was what don't what is the image that you have about yourself, because sometimes it can be very, very flawed. And then what is it that makes you change your mind about what qualities you have about yourself, and how do you reimagine them, and how do you kind of reprioritize what you got? How do you
Oh,
reevaluate what you've got?
yeah. Yeah. and it was realizing kind of, because I think our qualities are there. We just may not have discovered them. Like Libby,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
her spines are bad somehow or ugly, but it takes certain events for her to discover otherwise.
I think so. And I mean, Lord knows, I certainly think everyone has felt like an alien in the room at one time or another in life, usually at multiple times in, our lives. It's just a reality. And so for me, while I guess the surface was about this female character going through dealing with conceptions of beauty, for me, uh, the underlying thing that I was tapping into from the beginning was, I feel like an alien. I don't feel good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like whatever I've got is enough. I don't feel like it's right. And then what is the process that you have to go through to realize that that's not right either?
Right. Right. And I will say, we're talking about how this particularly affects girls and women, but I want to be clear that this doesn't mean this isn't a book for boys too. It's just something that society has really put a spotlight on with respect to girls, or a particular kind of pressure, or warped outlook about beauty, perhaps, but it most certainly applies to men and boys as well. This is not, strictly a female issue at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Also, it's clearly a timeless thing. I mean, we started this book in the early 2000s, early to mid. And it was certainly an issue before that, a long time before that, and it continues to be now. I feel perhaps even like exponentially, perhaps, because social media has exploded more since we started writing, because we started writing before 2007 and Facebook really became a thing, and Instagram was certainly not around until much more recently, and everybody's comparing themselves to what they see people presenting as their best version of themselves on social media, whether it's an aesthetic look or look at my awesome life, or whatever, without necessarily realizing that that's not the whole story, right?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows me will know that they almost never see me on Facebook. So I tend to, or Instagram, or just about any other form of social media. I tend to shy away from that stuff. But I do remember when I was a little bit more active years ago, sometimes it did really seem like a weird, I'll say, lens on life. And it wasn't artificial, but something about it. I mean, when I say it wasn't artificial, I mean that it came from people's real lives. And some people who I know who were sharing genuine moments, they weren't necessarily trumping themselves up to be something that they weren't. But even when you have a case like that, sometimes it's a weird thing where you have basically an edited version of somebody's life. And yeah, it's not the entire thing, really. It's a very bizarre experience.
Or there's a filter on it. That's another thing. You're making it look different than it actually was. Yeah. Anyway, perils of social media. One last thing I wanted to chat with you about, because this means something to both you and me. There are Easter eggs throughout the book, but this isn't an Easter egg. This is a full-on character. Priya, the cat, who is right below you there, Kev. It's Pat the cat. But she was our cat. I mean, she started out as my cat, and then you came into our lives, but she was our cat. And she passed away in 2007, if I've got that right. Yeah, yes. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to talk about Priya.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's funny. I mean, there's a very good chance that was Priya still alive when we were writing this?
She actually, that's an interesting question. I think she probably was. Yeah.
Because I do remember towards the end when she had hip problems. I remember she couldn't jump on my desk anymore, but I remember sometimes before that she would jump on my desk, and sometimes she would sort of like curl up and sleep kind of under the warmth of the lamp.
Mhm.
And so sometimes she was, I mean, right beside me when I was writing stuff. And so I mean, I guess there's a chance that she was, sitting a foot or two away from me when I was writing some of the earlier, going back and forth with you on some of the earliest drafts.
I may even have put her in there during the first draft.
I think she was in there from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it was because she had passed away, but it became much more important after that. And Gord, I'll say, has done a brilliant job of bringing her back to life. I like to say. Um, but he's done all the illustrations brilliantly. But it's just nice to have her back. I said in the cover reveal, she did all sorts of things with us. She was a model for artist
Mhm.
students at Max the Mutt Studio, and she was very good at it. She didn't, they let her walk around too. They understood that these kinds of subjects, animals, you need to let them do their thing. But she did a really good job. I forget if she did that only once or if it was a couple of times, but that was great. She was in a Leon's furniture commercial, as if he had torn up an easy chair, which when she was there at the shoot, I remember that she was sitting there comfortably and did not look like she had torn anything apart. And she just stayed there. She stayed on her mark. They're like, can we make her look a little more like she just, no, I don't think we can. But she's just been aggressive. No, no. And of course, she's been in a number of our shoots as well, including Space Zombies, sometimes with her brother Frodo, and sometimes not. Yeah, so she was a very special cat to us, and it was nice to feature her again.
Yeah, yeah, and as you say, I think Gord did an excellent job of bringing her back to life, and you know, her coloration, but things like her sometimes her silhouette or sometimes her eyes. He did, I think, a very good job of. I feel like he paid a great deal of attention and care to Priya, just as he did to all the other sections of the book too. But
Yeah.
he did a great job with her.
Yeah. Well, has certainly been a blast, even if it's been a slow percolating blast, writing Libby with you over these years and then watching it as an entire book slowly come to life with Gord, and then with input from Justine and Mirror World Publishing and everything like that. So, any parting words before we say bye?
I don't think I have any parting words. Just that it really is fascinating. You say that it was a slow. What did you say? It was like
Like a
a,
percolating,
a slow
percolation.
percolating
Yeah.
blast or whatever.
Yeah.
But these things do grow. Sometimes they grow quickly. Sometimes they grow very slowly, and also they grow through the collaboration and input from others. Because the essence of what I had pictured in my head from the beginning,
Mhm.
I think is pretty much what's in there now. But I didn't necessarily imagine the illustrations were the way they would be, or that particular text would be placed where it would be in the final version. But through collaboration, everything winds up growing, and then sometimes in unexpected directions. And but there you go. It flowers, it blossoms.
His blossoms. Exactly.
How's that for a last word?
Right.
All
And I
right.
will also mention that I think cacti grow kind of slowly, so that
Well,
may,
that's good then.
yeah, may be fitting for this book. At any rate, thank you so much, Kev, and I will see you in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
All right.